Welcome to Psychic Girls Next Door. We are your hosts, Shannon Miller
and Lili. This podcast is for all spirituality enthusiasts and psychics next door to share tools, experiences, and spiritual practices that align with your highest vibrational self.
So recently, we had the privilege of attending a live event with Esther Hicks, who is an American inspirational speaker, channeler, and author of several books. Esther channels a non-physical entity named Abraham-Hicks, and he has presented numerous workshops on the law of attraction and has also appeared in the original version of the 2006 film, The Secret. With Esther presenting, it essentially was Abraham on the stage. Esther started off and welcomed everybody at the event on Saturday, and she kind of goes into this like place of closing her eyes, and then all of a sudden Abraham comes through, and it was one of the coolest experiences I've seen demonstrating like someone's psychic abilities in front of like. I would say there were close to 1,000 people in that room. But I would love to understand, like, Lili, how did you experience the event on Saturday?
Yeah, it was just incredible. I mean, I haven't been to a large event like this in a while. I think it was even before it was probably pre-COVID. And just like hundreds of people gather just to see this person. And so for people that are not familiar, with Esther Hicks or Abraham-Hicks work, so she's been around for many decades, and she has like a large following around her work, and she is very famous with her teachings and all her motivational speaking as well, regards, it's all about the law of attraction. So, and again, if you're not familiar with the law of attraction, that's basically with the premise that like attracts like. So if you think positive thoughts, positive things will come to you. And if you think negative thoughts will come to you. So I've learned about her work probably also like many years ago, as I was probably like going through YouTube, and I was like probably saw one of her YouTube videos talking about the law of attraction. And I just caught my interest, and I started watching, and a lot of her teachings like really resonated with me and also with what we've been learning in the last few years. So when I heard that she was coming here, and it's actually the first time that they were coming to in-person events since the pandemic. So everybody was very excited. And I was like, oh my gosh, then we have to go watch her, because it just sounds, amazing just to see her in actual person. But for me, it was really powerful stuff. It was just such a powerful experience, because she, and I guess as Shannon mentioned, so she channels this being, and it's not like one being, not one spirit guide. I think Abraham-Hicks is probably like a group of guides that she has. I don't know if you got the same impression that I had.
Oh yeah, like a whole council of energies related to it's almost like it seemed like they can't, maybe not from the Akashic records, but like sort of similar to like coming from a place and kind of representing this information about the law of attraction. So it's kind of like all-knowing, kind of omnipresent energy, but it did feel full. It felt like at least a few different entities, and Abraham is almost like the chairman or the spokesperson on behalf of all of them, which I find really interesting. And Abraham's sense of humor is probably one of the best senses of humor I've
seen. I agree, because I think also like this type of information can be quite overwhelming.
And heavy.
Even heavy, it could be intense. But the way that it comes through, it's in a very tangible way. And it's like with humor, with amusement. It's almost like you're chatting with your grandmother,
Yeah. Yeah. Just like, kind of like someone who's just kind of seen it all and been through it all and just will tell you how it has to be. And they brought up people on stage. So they had a chair that wasn't facing the audience. It was facing, Esther and Abraham, which are pretty much the same person at this point. But when Abraham was speaking to them, they would ask their question. And some people asked, you could tell some people wanted the space to just meet with Abraham and talk about their experience with the curriculum and with the teachings from Abraham and just studying the law of attraction and doing the work. And then there were people who genuinely had specific things they wanted to manifest. And it was a really powerful experience. I think the more specific ones were probably at least more powerful for me to witness, because it showed me that it was almost like demonstrating how to go through the exercises of okay, this thing feels really far away and it almost feels intangible at the moment with how you're talking about it and phrasing it right now, or you're how your thoughts are formulating around it. And with the exercise that Abraham walked us through for a few folks, it showed that you're capable of getting to a place where it feels more attainable. It feels closer. If you want to have a baby, if you want to find a relationship, if you want to make more money, whatever it is, reframing and paraphrasing your thoughts and your words will get you to a place where it actually feels tangible and possible.
Yeah. Well, I also enjoy the fact that everything, it starts with you, because a lot of the question were always geared towards, of course, outside. How can I get this? How can I get my husband to do this? Blah, blah, blah. How can I, align these people? So it's always coming outwards to inwards. And what you kept pointing is that anything that you want in your life, it all starts within yourself, and it's not a secret. And I know that it sounds pretty simple to say that. It's oh, well, it just, starts with you. But when she puts things in a very practical way, and just saying, okay, well, what is the belief? What is the belief that you have around this? Because if you keep saying, I am, I am not happy with this job, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get situations and experiences that's just going to validate the experience that I don't like. And then this job sucks pretty much. But then was this guy that was talking about this, I guess, about his career. And then I asked him, but what do you want? Because that's where you want to put your energy and your focus. So it's all about focus. And he's well, I want this. So I'm okay, so that's a start. And then you start putting all your energy and your focus in what it is that you want. And then everything else that will help you to achieve that, and all the beliefs that you also have around that. So, and these are things that if you have already been doing some, inner work, or you have been in this path of healing yourself, or you have heard other motivational speakers, that might sound very familiar. But I think she just puts in a way that feels, again, a little bit more tangible, for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my biggest takeaway from the workshop was I just had this serene, peaceful, my mind almost felt blank after, where I am very into racing thoughts. I'm not into them. I just have them, until now. And, I just get really in my head about how people are going to feel, and how especially at work, I get very, very fixated on cultivating experiences for other people. And oh, if I do this, then they're going to be happy with me in XYZ. And this is how, they're going to feel about the experience. But then from the workshop, I was I can't control any of that. And it just brought this sense of internal peace and like all the mental chatter about like thoughts that don't really matter because it's not about me. The thoughts that I had been having before the workshop were very like external focused on like, how someone was feeling or perceiving something. And at the end of the day, like, it's almost like that's not my problem. That's not my responsibility. It's not something that I need to focus on. All I can do is focus on like how I show up in the experience. And like, if people want to interpret it a specific way, that's on them. And I think like from the workshop, it just kind of quieted the internal anxiety that I experience about, wanting things to be perfect because that doesn't exist. So that was really fascinating.
Yeah. Progress over perfection.
Absolutely.
That's kind of how it is. Yes. And she also kept reminding us too that what other people's information, other people's opinions, it just doesn't matter. There's nothing to do with you because they are projecting, their own perception of things, and that's not your perception. And I just like how she was encouraging. I think the healing was not only for people that came on stage to talk to her, but I think it was a collective healing. It was like whatever it is that resonated with you, I think it just applies to everyone that was sitting in the audience, because I would kind of hear people, like going, yes, that resonates with me, and people would just clap, just like agreeing with what she was saying. And I think for me, one of the biggest things that I took from this experience was that you have to focus on yourself. Mm-hmm. That's because on our day-to-day lives, we get so distracted with so many things. We get distracted with other people, whether at work or other social media, or, people that we live with, and so on and so forth. And a lot of our energy goes into that, and it's very hard to focus on the things that you really want if your attention is not there,
Yeah.
So I think that for me, that was my biggest takeaway. I think it's more like every time I feel like when I'm feeling a little confused, a little lost, it's just kind of coming back. It's coming back to my own information, and just reconnecting. Because what she was saying is also that in order for you to, I guess like we call it manifestations, just kind of bringing things into the physical plane, is also that you have to feel it. So if you say, for example, if you want to, I don't know, you want to make more money, but if you feel like you don't deserve it, you're not going to have more money, If you feel like you're not good enough to be in a relationship, you're not going to align the relationship. So it's all about the feeling. So if you're feeling fearful, you're just going to attract more of things that will make you fearful. And so that was a nice, kind of good takeaway too for me to kind of play around that, or as a homework, I want to say, just notice like how I feel about certain situations or things that I actually want. Do I feel joy? Do I feel tension? So I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah. And one thing she brought up was like, do you feel like it's going to be fun? And I've been having a lot of fun at my new job, and I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. Like something kind of clicked for me around that. Like if I'm not having fun, and if it's something I don't want to do, I'm going to attract that resistance, even if I have to, or if I'm obligated to go through with that experience or whatever it is, like, going to the dentist or something. It can be something as small as that. Like, I definitely I need to go to the dentist this year. And so, but I have really sensitive teeth, and I'm like, oh, that's going to be feeling uncomfortable. So then what happens? I go to the dentist and it feels uncomfortable. So like being able to shift your perspective on how you might feel about a situation will really showcase like if you're going to manifest the experience you want. So you are essentially like the author of your own narrative. You're creating your own thoughts based on how you feel. And so something she really emphasized was like you have to feel it, and then you kind of, attach onto the idea. It goes hand in hand with one another. Instead of, you can't just like think it, because if your feelings about, for me, I would love to manifest a life partner, but I have a lot of like limiting beliefs around. And for me, I have this belief I have to do the work before and, become like this perfect version of myself before I can even manifest someone who will want to be with me. So that's like something that I really learned from the workshop of like, wait, of course, like that's me getting in my own way. Like, I don't have a romantic relationship right now because I have all these barricades of like the work I have to do on myself to even become eligible for someone to be attracted to me or XYZ. So if you have those kind of barriers or limiting beliefs around what you actually want, that's where you need to start and like, dissecting that out and really reframing it in your mind. So that's the work that I'll be doing in here foreseeable.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we all have resistance in our space. Just as humans, we resist change, even though things are constantly changing. We have resistance to leaving our comfort zones too, and that's normal because we want to stay safe. And that's basically what it boils down. And I like how I don't know if you remember how she used this analogy of the pot boiling. And I thought it was really cool because what she was saying is that like, so say like we will focus on things and we get that pot boiling, right? So say like, for example, if you are looking to switch to a new job, so you got that pot boiling, you're like, oh, okay, great. I am looking for another job opportunity. So you go online, you ask people, but then something comes and distracts you. And therefore you shut off that pot. So it's constantly this on and off. So if you don't keep that pot boiling, then things, are not going to it's not going to boil all the way to the top. It's just going to be simmering, in the background, and it's never going to come to fruition. And then you go and you switch it off, and then you switch it on again. So it goes on and off instead of being like this constant, energetic space where it's just kind of like, it's just kind of increasingly, it's just you kind of start raising the energy and the vibration so you can finally match that. And then therefore create what it is that you're looking for. And sometimes you have like several pots boiling, and I noticed that too, because with me, I will have, I don't know, there's like 10 pots boiling. There's like maybe like 3. They're like boiling and some might be almost like overspilling. And then some of them I've already completely forgot, So that was like a really cool analogy that she used. Just to kind of focus. That was the word that she kept using. Just focus on what it is that you want.
And it just kind of reminds me of what we've learned at the psychic school we went to of like, where is your attention going? Like, what are you paying attention to? Because what you're paying attention to, you will manifest that in itself, whether it's positive or negative or something a little bit, in between. And I like the pot analogy because it made me pay attention to, it just made me, it made me focus and pay attention, in general, but on what am I, what are my current pots on the stove? Like, are they things that are serving me? Are they things that I actually want? Maybe they were things I wanted a few years ago, and maybe I've gotten a version of that already, and maybe I want a different version. So it's more of like, really kind of tune into what do you want and get really specific with it. I mean, there's non-specific manifestors and specific manifestors, but like for me, whenever I actually get what I want, it's because I got very specific and very intentional with the process of going through and figuring out what is it that I want? What do I need to do to get there? And how does it make me feel? Because if it makes me feel anxious at all, that will be a huge block for me. Or the path there might be a little bumpy. But if it's something that I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. Like, oh yeah, I know that's going to happen. That's that level of certainty and that level of clarity on what I want. And like, I know that it's mine already. That helps me manifest the things that I want super, super easily and super, super quickly. So that's something that I also took back from the workshop.
Yeah. And I think something also just to kind of mention too is that some people think, that manifestations like this woo-woo word that the spiritual community uses, but reality is we're always manifesting. Mm-hmm. We're manifesting every day. And it's all based on the choices that we make or that we don't make. So it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm going to manifest this like huge, something really big in my life, which is also, part of manifesting. But every day we manifest. By the time I think that you wake up, by the time you go to bed, there's probably several situations where you manifested something. So it's just something to kind of to pay attention to, like how are things unfolding and manifesting in your life? Is that a pattern of things? And how does it make you feel? So it's also a nice opportunity just to kind of step back and just kind of take a look at that. Is it like, you look at your life, like, for example, if you feel like, oh, I'm always in the situations where I never have money. I am always struggling. Mm-hmm. And I'm always manifesting situations where like there might come like some sort of event where I have to spend more money that I don't have or things like that, So this is definitely something to kind of take a step back and just look at it. What are the feelings around it? And what is it that is contributing to that too? Because it could be many things, because manifestation, I think it's just paying attention. What is the pattern in your life and how does it make you feel? Because if it makes you feel anxious, if it makes you feel depressed, or it makes you feel any sort of way, this is definitely something to pay attention to, Because I know it's easy for us to kind of like just kind of brush things under the rug. Just having a bad day. But if things like continue at a certain speed or a certain way, just get curious with it. Just kind of started from there,
Yeah. And one thing she talked about was trending. Like, what are you trending on? What, like how is how I associated the trending was like, what has your behavior been, up until a certain point around what you've been trying to manifest? Or, have you been doing the steps to get to that place? Have you been feeling good? If you've been trending in a path like so I used to be terrible with money, and I've gotten a lot better. And so this actually came up on a phone conversation with my parents yesterday about how my mom's like, well, just make sure you're not spending as much money, because I know you, and you've just been spending so much money. And and I'm thinking, well, and I told her, I'm like, that's exactly what we learned yesterday. That was me previously trending on spending. That was my previous trending patterns. So essentially the trends are your patterns. Like what have what have you been doing to contribute to that? So like I was in a place of lack for a really long time. Then I got a job opportunity that made me have abundance, but I had to help a family member during the pandemic, which made me have to spend more money. So I was still trending on spending more money. Instead of just myself, it was other people. And so now with this new job, the energetic shift has happened where I no longer am in that place of having to support a family member and go through that process. So my trending has completely shifted. And so I had to explain that to her because it's almost like not fair for other people to hold you to your past trends and your past patterns. Like, look at where you are now. Don't worry about the past. And that's something that Esther and Abraham really emphasized on. Like, don't worry about the past. Like, what do you want now? Where are you now? And I really, really appreciated that because it actually came up as a real life example of how to showcase to someone, like, that's the trend I was trending on previously. I am no longer on that trend now. I'm in a different place. And I think like that created that space between my parents and I to just, whatever worries my mom was having about it, like I think that kind of settled her for that moment. And it created space for me to just really own that I am no longer trending on that pattern.
Yeah, well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That you're like in this new space.
Yeah. And it feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just keep it up. That's awesome.
You have to feel good. You have to feel good to be.
Absolutely. And it brings you joy to be in this space.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I'm very fortunate. And like, of course, if a family member did need help, like I do have the means to do that. But everyone is in a place, like the dynamics have shifted. And like, I am no longer in a place where I feel obligated to support and help out, because that other person is also no longer trending in their previous trends and previous, behavioral patterns. And shifting the energy is possible if you are able, of course, opportunity helps, but what is your mindset about that opportunity? How do you feel about that opportunity that might come your way? Do you feel very far away from it? Does it feel intangible? Then it will be intangible. It will feel far away because it will be far away. So, but if it feels tangible, then you're able to bring it in and actually manifest it in this realm.
Yeah. And I think it's just becoming aware of your own beliefs around what is it that you want, and just start asking questions. Well, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel fear? Why do I feel anxious about it? Why do I feel undeserving? And of course, like our human brain is going to look for resources to justify the answers. So it will inevitably look into past experiences. But I remember that one of the things that she's also said is that if we keep lingering into past time situations, you're just going to bring more of that. That's basically it just become an extension of that. But also, I think that being able to manifest, it's not like a magical gift that people have that you just manifest. I think manifestation is you having an intention, but also you have to take action. It doesn't happen if you're sitting on your couch and just like, oh, I wish I was this and that. I wish I had more money. I wish I had this and that, because a wish is just a wish, right? That's all it is. And, but if you don't take action, then nothing is going to happen. So you kind of have to think of taking intentional actions in order to create what it is that you want to bring into your life.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it, because I wish it was that easy.
I know, for real. Like, if you could just like wish for something and then it appeared, but it's, you want something to stick. You want something to be able to be like long-term sustainable for you as well. Like, some, it's like for those people who win the lottery, they may have manifested that, but like, you know, do they know how to properly be able to obtain that and keep it and sustain that amount of wealth? That's like, you know, you hear stories about how people lost everything, or they, like, you know, something dramatic happened where they weren't able to have all that money, even though they you know, received all that money. So clearly they were able to manifest it in, but did they? It's almost like reading the fine print. What was in the fine print that had them, you know, kind of lose everything, like win something amazing, and then to not be able to sustain it and keep it up? That's where you really kind of have to pay attention to, like, what is the fine print of what you're trying to manifest, or what you're working on manifesting? Like, what is in the fine print for you? What does this mean for you? And then also, like, how does it feel at the end of the day? Like, so you do have to feel good to manifest. And like, whether that's joy, whether that's fun, whether that's amusement, whatever good means to you, it has to be a high frequency. Like, because when you are feeling it from a low place, you will keep attracting low vibrational feelings or situations that have the same matching frequency. So when you're top spinning and it's almost like top spinning a narrative, right? Like, you know, top spinning the frequency of where you want to feel, how you want to feel, what you want to manifest, and it going from low to high, it can be a process. So when you are going through that process, be patient with yourself, because it's
definitely. Yeah. Patience, I think, is key, because as you're giving this example of people winning the lottery, it's also about people. Are you ready to receive? Mm-hmm. Are you, you know, because we all think we're ready, right? Like, oh, no, I'm ready. I want it right now. It's like that instant gratification. I just want it, like, delivered to my door. But I look back in a lot of things that I wanted in my life, and I'm actually glad it didn't happen, because I think about it, I'm like, oh gosh, thank goodness it never happened, because it wasn't for my highest good. I thought it was, but it wasn't. So, but you also have to think, like, are you ready to receive this thing? And if it's going to happen, how is it going to change your life? You know, because not everyone, has the availability or the bandwidth to then keep up with whatever that they are looking for or their desire. But again, like, all this starts with a desire. Mm-hmm. And then from the desire, you focus. What is that you want? And then afterwards, as you focus, then you have to go through looking at the energy and all the beliefs and everything that is blocking you to get to that space that you want. And then you have to take intentional action too. So it's just, and I think it was basically that in a nutshell, at least in my mind. I don't know if it's, if it makes sense at all, but.
No, I mean, it made sense to me, because I also attended the workshop, but I think it's just a matter of, like, really figuring out, like, what is the next step? And, like, it doesn't have to be a huge step, just like a small step. Like, I really want to start working out again. So what does that mean? I have to actually work out. Like, I can't just talk about working out. I have to actually move my body. I have to carve time out into my day and intentionally pick a workout or go on a walk. Like today, I'm going to go on a walk after we wrap up here and, move my body. And that will be the first step. And that will feel good. That will feel good enough for me today. And then tomorrow is a new day. Every day is a new day. And it's a huge blessing that we all have. So kind of keeping that in mind, like, one step at a time to get to where you want to go.
Absolutely. Small steps, baby steps, I would say. Baby steps, because otherwise we just get overwhelmed and then you just give up. But it's also changing the perception of it, because, say, for example, for workout, if you think of a workout as a chore, it's going to be a chore, right?
Yeah, no, that's true. It'll feel like a chore if you think it's
Yeah.
going to feel like a chore.
And then and then you're already dreading that. So you're already in this energy of like, oh gosh, that's just, you already feel defeated. That's kind of how it is. So if you're already in this energy, you're not going to do it. And therefore, just the thought of it is just going to cause the feelings in your body just to kind of create tension. So I think it's more about also changing this perception of like, oh my gosh, I get to move my body. My body's healthy. I get to, release stress. I get to release tension. I get to put some like fun music in the background. So I think it's also like changing the perception of it. And again, like I'm not into this toxic positivity at all. I don't like this thing of like, well, just think positive thoughts, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I think we also need to be realistic, and also address that there are emotions. They're going to be, not as so positive. And you might feel dread, you might feel fear, and that's okay. It's okay to acknowledge all these emotions. But I think it's not letting all those emotions to kind of take over, and how can you shift the narrative around that? I think that's very important because people just get so like focused on this, just like on the, say like in this case, in this example, like in this, like, oh, it's a chore, I have to do it, so it's not fun at all at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's very accurate. And like, for me, I'm like, why have I had so much resistance to working out? And maybe it's because of like, information I got from, family or society about like, why it's important to work out. And then like, it becomes this very like serious, critical thing. But then at the end of the day, it's like, no, I really love going on a walk and I love being in the park. And I live super close to Golden Gate Park. And like, that's my nature walk. And I'm like, I feel very privileged and very like grateful that I have this literally so close to me. So it's a matter of reframing it and making it be like a positive, appreciative experience instead of having to do something for the sake of like looking a certain way or for the sake of like other people approving and like fitting in and like not being shamed for my body and like all those things, right? So like,
yeah. And again, it's other people's information, right?
It is. Yeah. That's so true. But yeah, very powerful workshop overall. I think like if you aren't familiar with Esther Hicks and Abraham-Hicks, please get familiar with it. It will honestly like open up your mind to new pockets of information that you're like, it almost calls you out in a really like fun, classy way. Like
I did feel called out.
Yeah. Oh, like, okay, I've been operating from like old trending and, old narratives that no longer serve me. And I'm like, what a great feeling to release them and shift the energy and start a new trend, start a new pattern for yourself. And that's kind of the goal. I think that was really the main goal of the workshop, to get that information of, get the tool of how to do that for yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's all about you. It's all about everybody on an individual level.
Absolutely, because your journey is unique. So no one knows how to do it better than you. Well, just to clarify also, this episode is not sponsored by Abraham-Hicks Publications. We just want to, not sponsored. And I mean, hey, if they want to sponsor, just please send us a message. But we just really, we really wanted to share our experience and just show you there are like different ways of receiving information. And maybe some of this information has resonated with you. And have you been to an Abraham-Hicks workshop, or maybe because they have like so many different sorts of teachings, like they have cruises, they have all sorts of things. So have you ever been to one? Please feel free to share with us. We would love to hear more about it. And have you applied any of these steps and tools that we have mentioned in this podcast. We would love to hear more about it. But we thank you so much for taking your time to listen to us and join us in this beautiful community, and for just holding space for us as well. And we hope to see you on our next episode.
Thank you so much from the Psychic Girls Next Door. See you next time.